Hi everybody and welcome to Obsidian Dawn Studios, where we dive into everything game design and Unreal Engine 5 development. In today's video, we're going to be going over some assets I've been creating for a game jam that me and a team have been working on, where we are creating a farm sim game in the same style as games like Lethal Company, where you build up some assets and then you go into the forest to find collectibles. You sell those collectibles and use that money from the sold collectibles to buy more crops and seeds to build up more assets, go into the forest, and yada yada yada. You get the point. It's supposed to be a very simple game that is just got a very simple mechanic where you run around and collect crops that you plant and grow. For this video, I'm going to be showcasing the growth mechanic that is already created, and we're going to be building up a few crops using assets created by another member of our team. So without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see here, I've actually got one of the assets on screen, which was put into place by our developer, Tianna. She created this, I believe, using Blender. Got a pumpkin here. This is one of the crops that I've already put together. And in our screen, I can actually showcase. Ooh, if it would load. This is all the code for our growth mechanic. So you can see off of event begin play, we get our references here. I can probably streamline this, but this is just rough draft. Then we create the static mesh. We get all the tags for each of the components on here that are produce. This is for some of the other crops that we're going to be creating, like the tomato plant, where it's going to have multiple produce on one asset. This is just so we can affect everything all at the same time. Then we set the material for that produce. We set the size of the plant and the produce. Then we set a widget so that it says a specific thing for the plant. And then we call the grow mechanic for the crop, which is going to be down here. Our custom event, plant growth, produce growth, creating a dynamic material instance where we change the color of the produce from that raw green color into whatever color we need for the ripe produce to be. In the case of the pumpkin, it would go from green to orange, of course. And you can see here, I've actually got it set so that it's got the pumpkin color as the material that it turns into. So you can set this to whatever color you need for whatever crop you need. And it will target the scalar variable. I believe I said that incorrectly, but it's what it is. I have the variable named ripen, so I'll showcase that in a second. Sets the material to all the produce. In the case of the pumpkin, it's just the one. Sets the ripen timer, so over the course of this timer, it will change the color. And then it sets the variable boolean for whether it is ripe produce. Once that is set to true, it'll destroy the original plant, which is, if I can show it on here, it's this little sprout on the inside, which you can see when you first plant it, but it is quickly overtaken by the pumpkin itself. That part isn't necessary for this, but it made it look a little bit better, so I added that. Once the boolean is set, however, we actually have a player interact function where as long as it is ripened, you can walk up to it and you can destroy the actor by interacting with it. So it's a fairly simple piece of code with just a bunch of timelines to simulate the growth function. And I can actually showcase it right here. Go into simulation, the plant, pumpkin, and then the pumpkin ripens. We're going to be recreating this effect for two other assets. We've got a carrot, and I believe we have tomatoes. So if we go down into Tianna's folder, I've got the carrot, I have tomato plant, and tomato produce right here. We're going to turn all of these into different assets. And eventually, we're going to set it up so that when the player interacts with the product, it is going to increment a variable on the player itself so that you can sell these products at a market stall and get money for it. But before we do that, we have to make the materials, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. So in order to make this relatively easy, we're actually going to take the code for the pumpkin. I'm going to get out of simulation. We're going to take the code for the pumpkin, and we're just going to duplicate it so that we get all of our, I don't know what that was, so that we get all of our code here. Generally, I could create a child blueprint, but I want to easily access all of this, so I'm just going to duplicate it instead, and we can always change that later if we need to. But before we get into that, I'm going to want to create a couple more colors for this. So I have a pumpkin color. Let me double check that. Material, ripen color, pumpkin. Come back over here. Pumpkin material, ripen color, pumpkin. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate this. Let's make a carrot. Yeah, let's go ahead and make a carrot. I'm going to make a duplicate of this. And don't want to knock that over. Let's move that out of the way. I'm going to make a duplicate of this. And we're going to name it ripen color carrot. Now that we have that, open that up, and we can change the ripen color. Let's make it a bit darker. Maybe brighter instead? No. Add a little bit more red, I think. Or green? What does green do? Ah, there it goes. That's what we wanted. No, it isn't. Never mind. That orange is a little bit too red. What if I were to do 2 for that? I can check that. Oh, set that to 1 so that we can see it. Maybe 5? No, that's too much. Let's do 2. And let's make it darker. Well, that was the opposite of what I wanted, but that orange is the proper carrot orange, so we'll go with it anyway. Okay, and we'll take that off, save. Now we have a ripened carrot color. Now what we're going to do, take the pumpkin, and we're going to duplicate it, crop, carrot, open, got the same code. Let's go down here, set ripen color to carrot, which we just created. There we go. Compile, save. But what we want, go into plant. We don't need to change that. What I do want to change is the produce, which is the pumpkin, and we're going to change this into carrot. Go into developers, Tianna, collections, meshes, take the carrot static mesh, drag it over to pumpkin, boop. And that looks like a pretty decent carrot. Let's lower it, and we can actually set it there. And I think we'll take a different plant. Let's take the sproutling instead. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll save that. And let me see here. That looks good. That looks good. What if we run the simulation? That's not what we want. So let's go to event graph, produce list element 0. Let's do 0. There we go. So the issue there was this is 2 different materials on it, and I had the element set to 1, which was our leaves and stem at the top, instead of 0, which is the main body of the plant. Now that that's fixed, the carrot is pretty much done. But what we need to do is show how this is used. So I actually have this plotted land flag here. This is actually a fairly simple piece that we have here. If I start our project as just temporary stuff, you can see if we walk up to the flag, it says plant. If we interact with it by pressing the corresponding button, in this case E, it gets rid of the plant and plants a crop there. This is just a standard default crop that I made, but if you press E again, it'll harvest it, get rid of it, and replant the flag, telling you that you can plant another item. What we can actually do is select the flag, and over here on the right, under details, you can see I've got a crop value. We can actually set this to whichever one we have. So let's set it to pumpkin. We can select crop pumpkin. Now when we go to start, walk up to it, it says plant, press E, and it'll plant a pumpkin. The pumpkin will ripen, and once it is ripened, we can walk up to it, press E to harvest, which increments our thing, destroys the asset, and places the flag back, telling us that we can plant another item. Pressing it again will spawn another pumpkin. And you can do that infinitely, or as long as you have the required materials on your character to plant it, aka seeds. So now that we have that, we can actually test whether the carrot works good, because we have that already created. So let's do carrot, BP crop carrot, play, plant. How adorable. It's so tiny, but it looks so good. Collect it, and we got ourselves a carrot. That's perfect. It worked out quite nicely. Let's do the same thing with a tomato plant. Tomato plant's going to be a little bit more complex because it's got a couple more pieces. So let's go ahead and duplicate our pumpkin, and we will call this one tomato. Open it up, come over here. Oh, first thing that I need to do, I need to create another color for this. So let's go into our ripen color. Ripen color might actually be default. Yeah. So our standard is going to be the correct color. Got that dark red. So let's go ahead and select produce, and we're actually going to do in content developers, Tianna, collections, meshes. We're going to take a tomato, viewport. That's quite large, but we'll see how big it is compared to the plant. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so let's take the tomato and we'll just pull this out a little bit. I honestly don't know what a tomato plant is supposed to look like off the top of my head, so we'll just duplicate this a couple of times, and this is where the tag that I showed earlier, produce, comes into play. Because how this is going to work, we're going to have 3 or 4 of these. Let's do a base of 3 real quick. That should be all right. So we're going to compile that, save it. And if we go over to details, type in tag, you can see each of these produce components has the produce tag on it, which ties back into our event graph, our produce list, which at the beginning of creation, we create an array of all the components that have the tag produce on it in this creation. So all of these components here are in this list. That way we can affect them all at the same time. So now that we have that, let's see what it does when we simulate it real quick. This is why I wanted to duplicate these blueprints instead of create child blueprints, because I wouldn't have seen that. So that looks like we have to set this to 0 as well. So let's go off of this into event graph, and you saw the plant got destroyed at the beginning or at the end there. So we'll just get rid of that bit of code. And if we go over to ripen color, we have our tomato color. Well, we don't have a tomato color, we just have regular. Oh, out of there, back into that. Ripen color, set that. And we'll target asset 0. Now I believe we are good. Viewport, simulate. That might be a little bit too dark, but it does look all right. Let's go into ripen color and let's lower, or let's brighten it a little bit. Got that. I don't know, what happens if we set it to 1? And get rid of the blue. That becomes a bright red. We can darken that a little bit. Let's see what happens when we take the scalar. Increase up. Makes it red. Is that the proper red, though? I feel that it needs to be darker. That might be good. Watch, I bet that it's just the same color. Set that to 0 so that we don't have anything messed up. Crop tomato. Simulate. Oh no, that's a little bit lighter. And I think that's a better color for tomato. That looks pretty good. Compile, save, drop out. And let's set this crop to tomato. I think I might have made a mistake somewhere. BP crop tomato. Why did you not show up? Select that. The oh, because I'm typing in tomato. There we go. And we'll plant. Turns into tomatoes. Harvest, plant. That's very cool. Now the great thing about us having this plotted land, which is actually a very simple piece of code that I created. Well, relatively simple, I would say. The great thing about this is the way that I have this designed, it will only allow you to have one crop planted at any given time, and it turns off its collision if there is something on top of it that counts as a crop. So whatever crop you have it set to, if there is one of those crops on top of it, you can't plant anything else until you get rid of it. And how we can use this, because of the way I have it set with the public variable, if I were to copy this and just make a couple of these, we can set each of these to a different crop. So we can set carrot to this one, we can set pumpkin to this one. And then when we go in, each one of these will have a different plant. So the way that we're going to be using this is we're going to have individual plots of land that you can purchase, and each of those plots of land you'll be able to plant just the product that you have set to it. Like if you purchase the tomato crop, you'll have a plot of land that now can have tomatoes planted on it. If you purchase the carrots, you'll have a carrot plot of land that you can plant. So on, until you have all the plots of land purchased, and then you have a complete farm. So I hope you guys found this interesting. I hope that you guys found the growth mechanic interesting, the different assets. I hope that you guys check out our game, and I hope you have a good day.